There are stories so creepy, they'll make the blood clot in one's very veins and probably make you want to shower as well, just to rid yourself of the feeling left with you. Even so, these stories must be told exactly as they occurred, and today's video will be one such story. I should warn you now that after this, you will never look at soap the same way again. Also, if you're currently eating any baked goods, finish them up now or put them away. We also advise you to keep any pregnant or overly anxious people, as well as children, away from the screen. The year was 1893. Our story begins in Montella Avellino, the Kingdom of Italy. Amelia Dinolfi found out that she was pregnant after being raped. And this isn't even the worst part. She was forced to marry her rapist, Mariano Cianciulli. Leonarda was born November 14, 1893. And to all the hardships already existent in the late 19th, early 20th century for the life of a girl, yet one more was added. Her father died early. There's no information that he treated his daughter badly, though. The same cannot be said about her own mother, however. Amelia got married a second time. Yet one thing in the family remained unchanged: the emotional abuse of Leonarda. Even at a young age, the girl tried twice to put an end to it all in the most extreme manner one could. Still, Leonarda Cianciulli survived, and at the age of 20, she said goodbye to her mother. She married Raffaele Pansardi, a registry office clerk. Her mother was against this union. First off, because the daughter's chosen one was much older than her, and secondly, she had already chosen another match for her. Leonarda scoffed at her mother's opinion, and in turn the mother cursed the newlyweds. At least, this is how Leonarda has told the story. Considering everything that came next, it can be considered true. Raffaele and Leonarda lived below the poverty line. When their son was born, the question of his physical survival arose. The mother tried to provide for her child by any means available. This led to her arrest for fraud later in 1927. The couple celebrated Leonarda's release from prison by moving to the mountainous regions of Irpinia. On July 23, 1930, one of the most devastating earthquakes in Italian history struck there. The Cianciulli household also suffered from the elements, and so they were forced to move again. The city of Correggio became a new haven for the couple. There, Leonarda opened a modest shop and made friends with the locals. She was considered a sweet woman, a loving mother, and an excellent neighbor. So where comes the horror, you wonder? Well, trouble accompanied the woman continuously throughout her 17 pregnancies. 3 of Leonarda's children could not be born at all. For those who have not yet encountered motherhood, it's difficult to comprehend all the tragedy and force of these traumatic events. What's more, the death of already born children was added to the 3 terminated pregnancies, 10 in total. Leonarda lost 10 of her 14 children, all at a very young age. Her traumatized psyche was akin to a burning lighter over a tank of gasoline, and explode she did. Cianciulli was fiercely protective of the remaining children, so she became extremely superstitious. Leonarda visited fortune tellers, and one of the soothsayers promised her the death of all the children. Another gypsy woman said that she saw in her life only a prison and a shelter for criminals. The superstitious Cianciulli took everything for the gospel. At the same time, Leonarda traded away her shop. The woman became known as the Soapmaker of Correggio, and she gladly shared her production methods in the courtroom. Here is the soap-making lesson given by Leonarda. Throw the fat into the pan, add the caustic soda, and stir until the pieces are completely dissolved. When the mixture becomes thick like porridge, remove fat from its surface, preferably with a copper ladle. Then, add a bottle of cologne to the fat and continue to cook the mixture until you get an ideal cream soap. Having washed away the story of childhood deaths a bit by talking about the cleaner, let's now return to the tragic life of Leonarda Cianciulli. The beginning of World War II was the final shock for her. Her eldest son, Giuseppe, was drafted into the army. Leonarda remembered the fortune teller's prediction. She felt she had to protect her son from death at the war front by any means possible. To do this, she chose a completely logical, expected, and by all means ordinary approach: a sacrifice. A human sacrifice, to be specific. Where Cianciulli got this idea from is unknown. As one story goes, a fortune teller once told her about this. The only way to keep your children from dying at a young age is human sacrifice. Such an approach might have seemed quite appropriate back in the Middle Ages, but the Italian decided that it was a great idea for 1939 as well. Yes, that was a long time ago, but not as much as it might seem. Do you know someone aged 83 or older? So these people were born around the same time that Cianciulli killed Leonardo. The woman planned everything out very carefully. She chose a victim among her neighboring friends. It was rumored in town that Leonarda was doing some sort of divination. Perhaps she just knew how to give good advice. In any case, the local women often came to her store. Some were middle-aged, single ladies. Cianciulli played the role of a matchmaker for Faustina Setti, for example. The never-married 73-year-old spinster came to Leonarda for help and later arranged everything. She found a suitable man from another town. But until everything was worked out, it was impossible to tell anyone about this, so as not to jinx it. Cianciulli advised Setti to write postcards to family and friends in advance. First, the woman would reach out to the groom and arrange everything, after which she would send out prepared letters. This way, everyone would know that all is in order with her, while she herself will not have to write any news immediately after the wedding. She would not exactly be up to it. With suitcases packed and a little excitement going, Setti called on Leonarda before leaving. To calm their nerves, the ladies drank wine. In addition to the alcohol, Faustina also ended up taking drugs, and so she lost consciousness. The owner of the shop dragged her friend into the closet and, without any ceremony, killed the woman without any occult rituals. Cianciulli cut the woman's body up with an axe, carefully collecting her blood. Leonarda planned the murder well, so she already knew what she would do with the body. Okay, second warning. The following lesson is provided solely to understand the processes and demonstrate the whole horror story of Leonarda Cianciulli. Do not replicate this in any possible way and try to unsee after watching the video. And now for the chemistry lesson, the topic of which is sodium. Pure sodium looks like a silvery metal, but it is so soft that it can be cut with a knife. Sections will dull instantly due to reaction with the air. True, you can't really play with sodium like that. First off, in nature, it is not really found in its pure form. Secondly, from contact with it, your skin, clothes, and everything else in general around crumbles into dust. This high reactivity makes sodium extremely useful. Sodium hydroxide is particularly aggressive. It is also known as caustic soda. As a matter of fact, extremely caustic alkali is used to process aluminum ore or remove impurities from oil. But there are more everyday examples. Caustic soda is an ingredient in sewer cleaners. It is also effective because it dissolves fat perfectly, as well as flesh, and even bones. Cianciulli wrote in her memoirs how she put the parts of Faustina's body into a cauldron along with caustic alkali. She boiled them until a homogeneous slurry was obtained. Leonarda believed that in this way, she was protecting her son. Additionally, the murder improved her financial condition. There is evidence that Setti paid 30,000 lira for the matchmaking scam. After Leonarda's murder, as though nothing had happened, she treated her customers to crunchy biscuits and tea. The mother watched as her eldest son Giuseppe ate contently, both alive and safe. Apparently, during one of these gatherings, Francesca Soavi made an agreement with the mistress of the shop. She promised to find her a job and kept her promise. The woman was expected at a girls' school in Piacenza. Francesca succumbed to Leonarda's persuasion to write letters to her friends in advance. After all, how else would they find out about her move and future plans? Nevertheless, just like Faustina, Soavi did not go to another city, but to Cianciulli's closest instead. On September 5, 1940, she drank her last glass of wine and turned into a homogeneous brown goo, and Leonarda pocketed another 3,000 lira. On September 30th, Cianciulli sent off her third victim in a similar manner. 53-year-old Virginia Cacciappa, a former opera singer, lived in poverty with better times behind her. Therefore, it was not difficult for Leonarda to bribe Cacciappa with promises of work for a mysterious impresario from Florence. Still, Virginia died, as did the first two victims. But this time, having dissolved the corpse with caustic soda, Cianciulli poured perfume into the cauldron and brewed an ideal soap cream. Then, she proceeded to give it to all the neighbors. This murder allegedly brought Leonarda 50,000 lira, jewelry, and the best cakes. And now a cooking lesson from Leonarda Cianciulli. Take about 3 liters of blood and wait for it to clot. Dry it, grind it into powder, and knead with dough in milk with eggs. Then add margarine, sugar, and chocolate to taste. Bake it into cookies and treat them to your dear neighbors. Leonarda was most pleased with Virginia Cacciapa's blood baking, since she was a very nice woman. At one point, Cacciapa's sister-in-law had noticed her sudden absence and went to the police. They immediately learned that the last time a woman was noticed in Cianciulli's shop. The soapmaker was arrested, but Leonarda was in no hurry to confess. She laid out everything in great detail only when the police blamed her son Giuseppe for the murders. The trial of Leonarda took place in 1946, and the process lasted all but a few days. Among the physical evidence presented were an axe, a hacksaw, a kitchen knife, and the cauldron in which the victims were boiled. Cianciulli did not repent. Moreover, her last speech in the courtroom shocked everyone. With terrifying thin hands, the defendant grabbed the railing of the witness stand and said the following: "I gave the copper ladle with which I skimmed the fat in the boiler to my country because it is in dire need of metal for the war." Leonarda Cianciulli was put in prison for 30 years, and for an additional 3 years, she was sent to a shelter for criminals. Everything happened as the gypsy had predicted. Perhaps one shouldn't consult with the palm readers. Leonarda died of a cerebral hemorrhage on October 15, 1970, when she was 79 years old. And so ended the life of the soapmaker from Correggio. But not her story. Material evidence in the case, namely the cauldron in which the victims were boiled, is on exhibit in the Criminological Museum in Rome. It is not known whether Giuseppe survived or if he died in the war. What do you think? If Leonarda lived in our time, would she become a murderer due to all the family misfortunes and superstitions? Or would timely psychological help correct the situation?